Hello, this day we come with another series of Time with Rev George, and we are still on worship. The last time we spoke about dynamics of instruments of worship, in essence, what goes into being an instrument of worship. We have realized that we are the instrument of worship, we are the conduit, we are the pipe through which worship flows to the object. And we now know that the object is God. Today, I want us to look into something that would benefit all of us, even as we present ourselves as instruments of worship. We are looking at some basic qualities of an instrument of worship. Basic qualities. When we say qualities, what are we talking about? Qualities. The root word is qualify. What qualifies someone to be an instrument of worship? The person should possess certain traits and abilities. Can anyone just lift up the voice and say, Lord, I worship you? And the question is, would it even get to the object of worship? When you go to the traditional world, they have their way of worship, like I said, and not all can go before the shrine and say that I am here to worship. When you go to the other parts of the world like Islam and others, you cannot just say, I just enter into the mosque and I want to worship. There are certain traits and qualities you need to acquire before you go before their maker and worship. Today I want us to look into the qualities of an instrument of worship, or who a worshiper is, the qualities. And today we are going deeper. Psalm 42 verse 1, David said, as the deer pants for the water brooks, so my soul pants after thee. Sometimes when I sit back, I say, who is this David at all to be writing all these? As the deer pants for the water brooks, so my soul pants after thee. In essence, David was talking about longingness, your ability to long for God, your ability to always chase after God. David, we say, was a God chaser, always chasing after God. It is not a coincidence that God records it. Samuel said in 1 Samuel that I look for somebody God has chosen, and God said, I have found somebody after my own heart, somebody who chases after my heart. And what was God talking about, or who was God talking about? David. And here David writes in Psalm 42 that as the deer pants for the water brooks, so my soul pants after thee. In essence, as the deer longs, there is a desperation in the deer's life. When the deer is thirsty for water, it has some hairy follicles in the nostrils. It is capable of sensing where there is a water brook or a small water that is gathered as a result of rainfall somewhere, and it will run as fast as it can to get to where the water brook is, just to quench the thirst. And this, David likens this strange animal to a worshiper. He says, his soul also pants after thee. You see, it is an instrument, a part of the instrument, body, soul, and spirit. The soul pants, or the soul despairs, travels a long way from earth to heaven to desire of the Lord's presence. The first quality of an instrument of worship is the longingness of the soul. How often do you long for God? In this season, which things are so rare, do you really despair for God? Do you long for God? Do you always want to, live in God's presence? David said in Psalm 23 and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Ask yourself, the house of the Lord is not the physical temple per se, but do you really want to always experience the presence of God every morning you wake up? In the afternoon, do you long for God? In the evening, do you long for God? When there is assembly of God's people, ask yourself, the longingness of your soul is a quality. It qualifies you to be an instrument of worship. Start thinking about that. The second one, I want us to go into 1 Samuel chapter 16, within the environment of 14. And it's an interesting story, because here is a great king Israel wanted and God appointed, Saul. And Saul was in distress after having wronged God. And God said, your kingdom is divided. I have now appointed someone to take over. I have appointed a worshiper. I have anointed him. Before then, Samuel had already heard the voice of God. And the Bible says in 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 14 that now the Spirit of the Lord left Saul. It is a dangerous thing to see the Spirit of God dissipated in your life or out of your life. Very dangerous. You ask yourself, what spirit is going to replace the Spirit of God after it has gone out of me? Now, this is what happened. The Bible says that an evil spirit from the Lord began to torment him. An evil spirit from the Lord. In essence, if you look into it theologically, God is not an inventor of evil, but he can just allow the enemy to take over. Because Job chapter 1, it says that whilst the enemy was moving to and fro before God, God asked, have you considered my servant Job? And therefore, God allowed the enemy to come in and test Job. So God will not initiate it, but God can allow. So an evil spirit, because the Spirit of God had departed from Saul. So the evil spirit came and tormented Saul. And whenever he is tormented, he acts radically. He destroys so many things in the palace. And this is what somebody said. Now watch this. I read. He says, so Saul's servant said to him, see that an evil spirit from God is tormenting you. Verse 16. Let the Lord command. The Lord here is small l, so he was talking to Saul. Let the Lord command your servants here in your presence to look for someone who knows how to play the harp. Whenever the evil spirit from God troubles you, that the person can play the harp and you will feel better. The first quality that was made mention was the harp, someone who is skillful. Now we are introducing an external part of the instrument of worship. We are talking about the playing of harp. In our contemporary world, we will be talking about maybe the keyboard or the piano. But there are other qualities I want us to think about. And we will start from verse 17. It says, then Saul commanded his servant, find me someone who plays well and bring him to me. Bring him to me. We will go deeper, but this is one of the qualities. Verse 18. One of the young men answered, I have seen the son of Jesse of Bethlehem, who knows how to play the harp. So now, somebody who plays an instrument carries a quality that makes him an instrument of worship. An external instrumentalist carries a quality. We will go deeper. The second one, he says, he is also a valiant man a warrior, eloquent, someone who is handsome, and the Lord is with him. I just like this. I listed them down. He is skillful in playing. He is a mighty man of valor. He is a man of war. He is prudent in speech. He is handsome, and the Lord is with him. Let's take them one after the other. When we say, I will take it from beneath. When we say someone carries God, in essence, the person is a believing Christian. The Lord is with him. He carries Emmanuel. Emmanuel means God with us. Are you a Christian? The major quality of an instrument of worship is that the person should be a Christian. Be somebody who carries God wherever he or she goes. Think about this. The second one I want to talk about is David happened to be a handsome man. A handsome man, we are talking about someone who is either beautiful or handsome in the spirit. Someone who is so clear before God. The issue of being deficient physically has nothing to do with the state of your heart. Your heart should be so genuine before God. And David happened to be a handsome man. And even if we carry it to the physical, when you become a Christian, God has a way of, decorating you and presenting you to the world. And someone will say, wow, ever since he became a Christian, his life has changed. Even his physique, his demeanor, everything is changed about him or her. Start thinking about this. It's a quality of an instrument of worship. Remember, you are the conduit, the instrument to worship the object, which is God. The next one I want to talk about is the person is prudent in speech. He knows how to talk well. The Bible says in Colossians chapter 4 verse 6 that let your speech be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer anyone who comes your way. So if David was classified as someone who is prudent in speech, then God is talking about someone who knows the word. Learn to study the word. It is a quality of a worshiper. It's a quality of an instrument of worship. Learn how to do that. I want to go deeper into it. There is another one he made mention of. He said he's a man of war. A man of war is someone who is a prayer warrior. He prays, he causes commotion and destroys the structures of the enemy. You cannot tell me that you are an instrument of worship and you don't pray. You don't pray because you think when you pray, your voice will go. Remember, your voice is just a fragment of the entire instrument that is you. So God expects you to pray. Pray, destroy the structures of the enemy. For the Bible says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds and imaginations and any other thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of Christ. And Ephesians chapter 6 verse 10 through 12 also talks about we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers and dominions and thrones and spiritual wickedness and all powers of the enemy. That is why he said that we should stand and put on the whole armor of God. And therefore you should be a person of war, a woman of war, a man of war. David was a man of war. It is a quality. So I want you to start thinking about these. If you lack some of these qualities, try and appropriate measures so that you become an instrument, a total instrument of worship. Then the next one is a mighty man of valor. The person we are talking about happened to be confident, bold. In our local dialect, we say domberima. Somebody who is not afraid of facing issues. You go to the presence of God with confidence. He says, enter his throne with boldness, David says. So I want us to start thinking about this. Are you bold? Are you confident? Or there are itches here and there, traces of evil deeds in your life, and therefore when you are going into the presence of God, you are scared. David was a man of valor. These were the resume of David that qualified him to move from grassroots to the palace is the quality of an instrument of worship. Then he was skillful in playing. What is your skill? I remember one great man, Ron Kinoli, said that we have sophisticated hand clappers. You can develop a skill. Yours may not be keyboard, yours may not be guitar, yours may not be any of the wind instruments, yours may not be any of them. But there is another gentleman I know, he knows how to dance in the presence of God. And whenever he misses church, when there is an assembly of God's people, they can easily track and say that brother A didn't come, sister B didn't come. Why? Because whenever there is a moment of praise, the person shows up. It is an ability. Do it skillfully. What do you carry? You know how to clap your hands? You know how to dance? You may not know that the song you are even bubbling with in your mouth, the smile alone is encouraging someone to worship. It's a quality. Even as I bring this session to a close, I want you to think about these qualities. Mighty man of valor, prudent in speech, God is with you, a handsome or beautiful man or woman respectively. Are you a mighty man that knows how to discipline yourself in warfare? Are you skillful in any of these? And do you long for the presence of God? May the Lord be with you even as you prepare yourself with these qualities. God bless you. The name is Pastor George with Time with Rev George. Bye.